What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the STR podcast, otherwise known as the Start the Rebuild podcast. I'm your co-host, Tim Fournier, alongside Ian Mills.
Hey guys, how you doing? Make sure to check out our Instagram and Twitter linked down below in the description of our YouTube and our Twitter. And our Spotify.
Yeah. I'm excited to be back. How about you, Ian?
Yeah, no, it's been a hot minute. We've both been very busy, but on top of it, a lot of stuff happening, especially recently. Obviously, the draft coming up is probably the biggest one for us, at least for the NFL. And obviously, the most important position in football is quarterback. So that's what we're going to be starting with today.
Yeah, starting off with QB rankings. So how we decided to do this was Ian and I both wrote down our top 5 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And we're going to unveil them here one by one and see how similar our list is and kind of debate about who should be where and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, without further ado, I assume we both have the same number 1.
Yes.
All right. Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, I mean, he's the clear-cut number 1. They're saying he's the best prospect since Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning. And I mean, I'm not going to dispute that. He's the clear-cut number 1. He's going to go there's no way he wouldn't go number 1 overall.
He has about as flawless of a resume as you can possibly have.
Yeah. It's hard to say that he doesn't deserve being the first overall pick for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I am a huge fan of my number 2 quarterback, and I do think the gap is potentially smaller than it's made out to be between 1 and 2. But anyway, before we get into that, to finish off on Trevor Lawrence, he's got the arm, he's got the athleticism, he played the good competition, he has a winning history. Like we said, he's pretty much the perfect prospect in terms of that. I will say, though, I don't know about you, to be completely fair, watching him at sometimes, he has like this unreal hype about him. Sometimes I felt like it was something was being a little left to be desired from what I was hearing about how perfect he was supposed to be. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I think if you look back at his sophomore year highlights, especially early on in the season, like he was struggling against teams like Syracuse, which is one of the worst, FBS teams in America. Yeah, he was struggling against. I mean, it was certainly just kind of like, I think, especially earlier on in his career, just not great decision making. And you're right, like there's a little bit left to be desired, but like most college all college quarterbacks are not perfect. You know what I mean? So it is, even if we look back at Andrew Luck, I mean, he's throwing his body around like recklessly, which in part came down to his demise. So yeah, there certainly are parts, especially his sophomore year, which I could definitely see. And we're a little underwhelmed, but I will say that like, regardless of that, he's still like, I would say, and I'm sure you agree, like the number 1 guy for sure.
I agree. I think he's amazing and an awesome player. I think people need to temper their expectations about him being a guaranteed Hall of Famer, though. Yeah. Especially going to a franchise like the Jags.
Yeah.
And I'm not sold on Urban Meyer being a amazing coach in terms of like, especially like offensively and all that. I mean, we'll see. But I think a lot of people think he's going to automatically set the league on fire as soon as he touches the field, and he's going to be an automatic gold jacket. But I think deserves number 1.
Yeah, no, of course. Like if you look back at like Andrew Luck had a really good career, he was a great quarterback, and like did he match those expectations that were set to him, like basically the automatic Hall of Famer? No, he didn't, because he's probably not going to make the Hall of Fame. And like it's almost as if like the same thing could be true for Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, Andrew Luck, retired early, out of his own decision, but like there is a real chance that like the surroundings just aren't there for him. Or he struggles with injuries or whatever it may be. So I do agree, like there is always like a bust percentage, especially early on. Like rookie quarterbacks like are not usually good. Like obviously Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert were really good last year, but usually we don't see like quarterbacks light it up right out of the gates, and he has the biggest expectations potentially ever coming out of college for a quarterback.
Mm-hmm. So to keep moving, going to number 2, I'll let you you have first.
Okay, so you were saying that number 1 and number 2 aren't too far away for you. Well, my number 2 and my number 3 aren't super far away right now. Okay. And I think, for most of the season, or I guess towards the back end of the season, I had my number 3 as my number 2, but I recently swapped it somewhat due to the pro days. And I think a little bit I was, I want to say brainwashed, but definitely the media switched it a little bit for me. But my number 2 right now is Justin Fields. And it was Zach Wilson for a pretty good amount of time. And I think Zach Wilson is an incredible talent, obviously. But when, the questions about Justin Fields, and I'm talking about recent ones, or, people are saying, well, he doesn't work hard, he doesn't do this, isn't that. And I think those are not those just don't really make sense. I mean, he was playing with broken ribs in the national championship game. He killed Clemson the game previously and played exceptionally, maybe the best game of his career. I mean, on top of, mind you, he runs a 4.4. Like, that was quarterbacks run 4.4s. And again, that could be skewed because the pro day results, everyone's saying they're a little bit skewed. And I don't know how true that is, but I'm just saying.
I'm not sure.
It's hard to really tell, but I would say the questions about Justin Fields, up until fairly recently, Justin Fields was a consensus too coming into this draft, and he was kind of I feel like he was a little bit unfairly criticized, because Zach Wilson right now, and a lot of people's, and obviously it seems as if he's going to get drafted by the Jets. That seems like a guarantee at this point. It does seem like he was knocked down a peg for what seems like, to me at least, not a huge reason. To have an athlete like that will play through injuries, who had incredible success in his career. Mm-hmm. People forget he went to the national championship. Sorry, not national championship. He went to the playoffs last year and had thrown one pick and scored 50 touchdowns and threw one pick up until the playoffs, where obviously he did end up throwing 2 interceptions. He put up the numbers. It seems as if maybe obviously he didn't win the national championship, but it does seem as if he did about as much as you can do as a college quarterback. And I think Dwayne Haskins being the bust that happened hurt him a little bit, just because Ohio State.
I don't think he's Dwayne Haskins.
Never worked out. No, he's not at all. That's what I'm saying. I think that's what people are oh, well, he's in this perfect scenario where
Ohio State quarterback stigma.
Ohio State quarterback, right? So I think he was a little bit unfairly criticized for that. So right now, Justin Fields is my 2.
Okay. Before we go forward, is it safe to assume that Zach Wilson is your number 3?
He is, yes.
Yes? Okay.
Yes.
So I am a huge Zach Wilson guy. I think I'm very much learning in my own kind of evaluation of quarterbacks, and it's a process. You and I both were very much against Justin Herbert last year.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a combination of things, but I didn't really see it. He obviously had the tools. We knew he was an athlete, and he had the
To be fair, Oregon ran screens 25% of the time. He wasn't really utilized as much he's being used as the Chargers.
Right. But anyway, one of the biggest things I look for when I decide if I really like a quarterback, especially in the draft process, is if they just seem this is going to sound way more simple than it actually is, because it's very hard to put your finger on it. I really look for if they're a gamer, if you know what I mean. They're put in a situation and everything's going wrong, and they roll out of the pocket, they make a guy miss, and they make some stupid angle throw, the stuff we start to see Patrick Mahomes do now, what we see Josh Allen do, even Lamar Jackson a little bit, where he freelances, and I know everyone loves to shit on his accuracy and stuff, but he throws like a sidearm like crossbody throw where he fits it into like they have that ability to play out of structure, but it's really hard to explain because it's not as simple as just like, oh, they're really good at playing out of structure. But like I think watching some guys, you can just tell they have that like it's almost like they play like with a personality. Like they're not worried about like what they're doing whatsoever. It just comes like completely natural because they're so comfortable doing what they're doing. If that makes sense. And I really see that with Zach Wilson. And part of the reason he can do that is because his arm is crazy. I won't even he doesn't have like just the pure power that a like Josh Allen does, but he has all the angles and just like it's such like a whippy motion that he can just like launch a ball like from any angle, which I love. I think he's got a good head on his shoulders. And then compared with Fields, there's been a lot of, like you said, stuff coming out about his character and work ethic and all that stuff. And he's like starting to slip on boards and he can't read defenses and blah, blah, blah. All these people are talking about. And originally I was kind of like, oh, like I don't really see it with him. And like, I kind of like, I'm almost starting to agree with some of those evaluations. But I think Justin Fields for me has a little bit of that Justin Herbert stuff that I missed on last year, if you know what I mean. I think Justin Fields is like a learning experience for myself to not psych myself out like I did with Justin Herbert. Because, I mean, I still have my reservations about Herbert, but he is very, very, very clearly way better than I ever thought he was.
Right, yeah. I think we comped him with like Mitch Trubisky, I think.
I don't remember what it was. We can go back and look, but like I was very, very low on him. And I think Justin Fields is can be like a learning experience for me with that. And I have him at 3, and I think he's going to be really good. If he goes to the 49ers 10 years from now, I would bet that he's looked at as the best quarterback from this draft.
Right, yeah.
But I really, really like Zach Wilson too.
Yeah, for sure.
But back to what I was kind of saying about that, one other thing I wanted to touch on is the media and like what you see on Instagram, like with the pro day videos and stuff, completely sways everyone's opinion of everyone. It is crazy.
It's wild. Like Mac Jones, and we'll get to him. I'm assuming we'll get to him at some point, but like he overthrew a ball and like, I mean, that's bad, but like people, not that people were incredibly high on him, but people really were, really like putting him down the draft boards for missing a throw, in a pro day. Like not draft analysts, but like former GMs will say like, the biggest thing about a pro day is like you'll see a receiver you've never seen catching balls, and I'm like, that we'll pick him up in the 7th round. You know what I mean? So
so anyway, keep this going. I guess I'll share my number 4 now.
Well, one last thing I want to touch on Zach Wilson.
Sure. Go for it.
One last thing I want to touch on Zach Wilson. You were saying he's the kind of like the gamer. I would agree with that entirely. He is a Mormon, but I'm assuming he's Mormon to BYU. I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming he is. In high school, he had 2 dates at prom. So that's a real gamer move, in my opinion. That's a gamer move.
Seal of approval. I'm putting my stamp on Zach Wilson. I really, really like him. But if he were not in here, there would be a very, very big gap between Justin Fields and anyone below him.
Yep.
Because I do like Justin Fields. Just because I have Zach Wilson with him is not because I don't like Justin Fields. And I want to make sure it is more of a testament to how much I like Zach Wilson more than disliking Justin Fields.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. So my number 4 and 5, I assume we have the same 2 players. I assume.
I would imagine we do, yeah.
We might have different takes. If you're saying we can assume, I assume you have a combination of Mac Jones and Trey Lance.
Yeah, I have Lance at 4, Mac Jones at 5.
Okay, that's completely fine. I have Jones then Lance.
Okay. Fair enough.
It's in terms of ranking them, this is the one I had the most trouble with. It very much depends on what you want.
Yeah.
like if I'm throwing one of them out there at any point in year one, I would rather have Mac Jones.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If I'm trying to hit a home run, I think it's obvious that you would try with Trey Lance.
Yeah.
With the Niners, all these rumors about Mac Jones at 3 is very confusing to me.
Very.
I don't feel like that makes much sense if you are getting all the way up there to when you already have Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah. Yeah.
That seems a little confusing to me.
Yeah, like I feel like Mac Jones is like ceiling is like Kirk Cousins, I feel like.
Who Kyle Shanahan loves.
Right, which is like not.
He worked with him in Washington.
Yeah, which is like it's not like Kirk Jones isn't a bad, or Kirk Cousins rather, isn't like a bad NFL quarterback, but like Trey Lance's ceiling, I feel like is like Mahomes Allen. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference there. So
it's interesting. What do you think about the whole like Mac Jones going number 3 rumors?
I think it's a bit of a smokescreen. Like I really do. Or it's
but
just
like,
for
why do they need a smokescreen if Lawrence is definitely going 1 and Wilson's definitely going 2?
I guess that's true. I guess that is true. They really wouldn't need a smokescreen, but
that's what's something about me. And the other thing too is what are the chances that Kyle Shanahan just thinks he's so smart and his scheme is so good that he just needs someone with a good enough head on their shoulders to execute it? And he's just figured out that Jimmy G is just not that guy.
That is possible that he just wants to plug and play.
If we're ranking these guys by just like their processor, Mac Jones is easily top 3. I think that's pretty universal.
Yeah, that's fair.
With potential to be 1, 2, or 3. Because what he lacks is the physical abilities.
Yeah.
I think people act like his arm is horrible. I don't think it's horrible. It's just worse than any of these other 4 guys.
No. Yeah.
So no, I actually do like Mac Jones. And
yeah, I don't dislike him.
I think it would be very interesting if he went to the Niners.
Yeah.
If I were sitting there, I would think I'd take Justin Fields. But the other thing too is like if he believes in his scheme so much, like how much does the natural ability that like Justin Fields or Trey Lance have really matter if your whole offense is based on scheming a guy open for 6 yards in open space?
Well, I think the problem is like with like you don't want to get another Jimmy Garoppolo,
right?
You know what I mean? Like in terms of like talent wise, like you want to, if you want a similar quarterback, that's fine. But if Mac Jones, you know, is like just okay, like then he's Jimmy Garoppolo. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know.
Yeah.
And maybe Kyle Shanahan wants that. Maybe he just thinks Mac Jones is leagues better, or has potentially leagues better than Jimmy Garoppolo. Then yeah, I mean, then do. But I feel like if you want someone to elevate, if you don't want another Jimmy Garoppolo, then would be Justin Fields. It is a bit confusing. I mean, there is a chance that like these rumors are literally just rumors. You know, what I mean?
Honestly, that's definitely a possibility. But I honestly think I think Mac Jones is going at 3.
Really? That's interesting. I think, there's a real possibility at this point.
We're getting closer. Before Ohio State's pro day. Granted, they could.
Didn't they make it before Alabama's too, though?
You might be right. I might be mixing that up.
No, I think Ohio State and Alabama had it on the same day.
You might be right. I might have screwed that up. But just like there's no point to needing that like that smoke screen like we were talking about.
Yeah, there really isn't.
Overall pick, and he's not going in the top 2.
Yeah, I think there's a chance. Well, they were saying, you know, another rumor is like, oh, the Niners are just going to pick whoever, like they're going to be fine with not getting Lawrence or Wilson. I think there's a chance like they might not have made up their mind at this point. Then again, like Kyle Shanahan went to Mac Jones's pro day, but he didn't go to Justin Fields' pro day. Like, is that right. Something there? I think
that's
like,
what I was going in my, like, I think that's what I had.
We were trying to say, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good point. And it's upsetting only a little bit because I think, like, first off, Mac Jones could be very good. I mean, he could work out, but
I think he would be really good in that system.
But the thing is, like, how good could Justin Fields be in that system? You know what I mean? Like, how good could the Niners be with Justin Fields? You know what I mean? So
there might be an argument for just that specific system that Mac Jones could be potentially better.
Interesting. That's interesting.
Because I had just talked about how much I like Justin Fields. I have him over Mac Jones.
Right.
But I think Mac Jones has a better processor, and he would be able to read defenses better. They have a really good outside run or outside zone run scheme that I think that Justin Fields and Trey Lance could elevate a lot. But if I had to predict today who's going number 3, I'm saying Mac Jones.
I also think, like we were talking about, like, Ohio State quarterback, and obviously and like the receivers, like, first off, Alabama quarterback and like Mac Jones might have had like the best weapons. Like, he did have the best weapons in college football last year. And like, and obviously he didn't play the entire year of the year before because of Tua, but like, even then he had incredible weapons, and how much that plays into the decision-making process of the NFL, like of NFL executives, will be interesting. I don't know. Like, you're right. There is a good chance, like, just simply from what we have heard or what has been put out there, is that Mac Jones probably would go over Fields. I would be a little upset just because I think Justin Fields, like, is the better prospect. Like, I just think I'm sure you agree with me. Like, you would like to see the better prospect go above him, but and then to get to Trey Lance, I ranked him above Mac Jones simply because I think his ceiling is higher, like way higher than his. I also think people are kind of in this moment, like, looking for the quote unquote, like, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, where it's like, let's, I mean, obviously Josh Allen didn't sit a year, but he was playing. They wanted to sit him a year, like, sit him a year, and then the next year we'll start him, and he'll learn from a vet, and he'll be really good because he's just physically talented. And Trey Lance is way faster than Pat Mahomes. He's way faster than Josh Allen. You know what I mean? And
he's a really good athlete.
Yeah, he is in a similar vein to Lamar. He didn't run the 40 simply because he didn't want to be labeled a running back or a receiver. Like, the guy's right. He's an incredible athlete. And obviously, he didn't play this year, so he didn't have actual footage. He played one game and didn't play very well. And then obviously North Dakota State moved their season. So, I mean, he is kind of like an anomaly because, like, how many North Dakota State games have you seen in your life, like, live, on top of he is just like this, like, he just hasn't played even when they have played, he hasn't played. So I don't know, I just like the ceiling, but that also could be like the bias of like, the last couple of years, these physical specimens have been insane in the NFL. And I think he could fall in that same vein.
It used to be like, I think the way offensive schemes have developed, the ways the rules have changed, and the way the game has changed, that like, not that it's easy by any means, but it has become way easier in the NFL to have like a baseline of production. It used to be like Andy Dalton was the tier where if you were above Andy Dalton, you were like really set at quarterback. And now Andy Dalton's probably high 20s, mid 20s.
Right.
Just like the bar has been moved up because everything has one second. Do you have a washer? No. What was I saying?
Offenses, quarterbacks are getting better, it seems.
The baseline has just moved up so much, and it's made it so much easier with the schemes and everything developing like that I think it's starting to shift, or at least it looks that way, that the QB evaluation has completely changed from, I want a guy who's not going to screw up, who has the like processing abilities, all this, to I just want the guy with the most talent that when things because everyone has like this like higher baseline that now everyone's looking for that extra level of ability when things break down to do whatever you can.
Yeah.
And now teams are more looking towards that. And Trey Lance has that ability more than someone like Mac Jones, but I think Mac Jones has more of like the processor, which is why maybe someone like the Niners who has that extra level up because of their scheme, they might be able to do more with it. But between these two players, Mac Jones and Trey Lance, it's very dependent on what you're looking for.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. Yeah. As you're saying, like the baseline has definitely changed. As like, I mean, the Packers picked Jordan Love obviously in the first round last year, just because like he's the physical kind of specimen that has all the talent, right? And then in a couple of years when Aaron Rodgers retire, I mean, that could be 5 years from now. We have no idea. Obviously, Jordan Love would probably be playing before then, but yeah, no, you're right.
Last thing
talking about how important.
Oh,
okay, sorry. No, you're good. You're
going. I was just gonna say to wrap it up. One thing I think we all have to remember is probably more important than each of these players' individual abilities is their landing spot, because that shows it greatly impacts everyone's opinion of them and their development in their first couple of years. So
yeah, for sure.
Honestly, I'm not surprised if whoever goes to the Niners ends up being the best quarterback in this draft.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like the couple like Lamar and Josh Allen were drafted to playoff teams, and they're the consensus 2 best quarterbacks in the draft right now. You know what I mean? So that's for sure. Like absolutely, where you were drafted matters absolutely, and to have what's essentially a playoff team in the Niners to be picking 3 is huge.